In the world of survival, there's a silent enemy that's often overlooked: the second collapse. This is not the initial shock of a disaster, but the slow, creeping doom that seizes hold when your survival strategies start to crumble. It's the moment when the can opener breaks, or the seeds don't sprout, or the water filter clogs. It's the moment when you realize that your well-thought-out survival plan has gaps you didn't anticipate. The second collapse is the point where survival becomes a daily gamble, where every decision could mean the difference between life and death. It's a time when the simple act of living becomes a monumental task, and it's a time that many preppers, despite their best intentions, are woefully unprepared for. You see, there's a common misconception in the prepping community about long-term readiness. Many of us plan for the immediate aftermath of a disaster, a bug-out weekend or a few weeks without power. We stockpile food, water, and supplies, believing we're prepared for anything. But what happens when those supplies run out? What happens when the canned goods expire, the backup systems fail, or the gear rots? What happens when the first wave of disaster is past and we're left facing the long, hard slog of survival in a changed world? This is where the second collapse comes in. It's the point where the initial emergency has faded and the new reality sets in. It's the point where the strategies we've relied on start to fail and we're forced to adapt or perish. But it's not all doom and gloom. The second collapse can be averted, or at least mitigated, with careful planning and preparation. It requires a shift in mindset, from short-term survival to long-term sustainability. It requires us to consider not just how we'll survive the initial disaster, but how we'll keep going in the weeks, months, or even years that follow. Prepping isn't a set-it-and-forget-it game, it's a long-term commitment. It's about developing the skills, knowledge, and resilience to survive not just the first wave of disaster, but the second collapse as well. It's about preparing for the quiet collapse no one talks about, and learning how to survive that one too. When the second collapse hits, food is usually the first thing to go. It's easy to underestimate just how quickly your stockpile can shrink. You might have thought you had enough to last a year, but when you're living solely off your supplies, you'll find they disappear at an alarming rate. And that's not even considering the potential for spoilage or pests. What's more, long-term storage food often leaves a lot to be desired. It might be packed with preservatives and have a long shelf life, but when it comes to taste and nutritional content, it often falls short. You may find yourself eating just to stay alive rather than enjoying your meals. And if you're not getting enough calories, you'll quickly become weak and susceptible to illness. Then there's the issue of growing your own food. Many preppers have a garden or some form of agriculture in their survival plan. But when the time comes, you might find that your seeds don't sprout or your crops fail. Maybe the soil isn't as fertile as you thought, or pests and disease wipe out your harvest. So, what's the solution? The key is to identify the weak points in your food preps and build in renewable strategies before the collapse compounds. Cultivate a variety of food sources, from hunting and fishing to foraging and farming. Learn how to preserve food naturally without relying on store-bought cans or packets. Remember, it's not just about quantity, but quality too. Make sure your diet is balanced and nutritious. And don't forget the importance of taste. In a survival situation, a delicious meal can be a huge morale booster. Finally, consider your cooking methods. Do you have a way to cook your food if the power goes out? Can you make a fire? Do you have a solar oven or a camping stove? These are all things you need to think about and prepare for. By identifying weak points in your food preps and building in renewable strategies, you can survive the food crisis. With careful planning and a bit of creativity, you can ensure that even when the second collapse hits, you won't go hungry. Water, the elixir of life, can become a cause of concern during the second collapse. It's easy to underestimate just how crucial this resource is until it's too late. You might have a rainwater collection system in place or a nearby stream that you're counting on. But what happens when the rain doesn't come? Or when that stream dries up or becomes contaminated? The reality is your water sources can run out. Your rain barrels might be bone dry for weeks, even months on end. What was once a reliable water source, now a barren landscape, and it's not just about quantity, the quality of water matters too. Your filters might clog up, rendering them useless. Without a backup plan, you're left with unsafe water, a fast track to sickness and disease. Worse still, your water source could be discovered. In a world where clean water becomes a scarce commodity, it's a resource others might be desperate to claim. This could lead to unwanted attention, putting you and your group in danger. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are effective solutions to these problems. The key is to build redundancy into your water collection system. This means having multiple ways of collecting and storing water. For instance, in addition to rainwater collection, consider setting up dew traps or learning how to extract water from plants. Filtering water when supplies run low is another crucial skill. This might mean getting creative using methods like solar distillation or even making a homemade charcoal filter. Remember, having several methods at your disposal can make a world of difference. Lastly, it's important to have contingency plans in place should your water source be compromised. This could mean having a secret backup source or knowing how to stealthily collect water without drawing attention. All of this may sound daunting, but remember, preparation is half the battle. Building redundancy into water collection and learning how to filter when supplies run low can save your life. Don't wait for the second collapse to realize the worth of every single drop. Reliable gear is a prepper's best friend, until it's not. When the world around you is collapsing, your survival tools become your lifeline. But what happens when your lifeline snaps? What happens when your gear breaks and your tools fail? Imagine this, it's been months into the collapse, your flashlight batteries are dead, your fire starter won't spark, and your trusty multi-tool is as dull as a butter knife. Suddenly survival becomes a grind, and your gear, which once felt like your saving grace, is now just a pile of junk. This is the reality of the second collapse when your gear starts to fail you. When the batteries die, the lighters break, the blades dull, and the electronics fry. It's not a matter of if, but when. But don't despair. There are ways to prepare for this inevitability. Firstly, understanding that your tools won't last forever is crucial. Regular maintenance is key to prolonging their lifespan. Keep your blades sharp, your batteries fresh, and your electronics protected from the elements. Next, consider stocking parts. Having spare batteries, wicks for your lanterns, and replacement parts for your tools can make a world of difference when your gear starts to fail. Finally, have a backup for your backup. If your primary flashlight dies, you should have a secondary one. If that one fails too, you should have a reliable way to make fire. The principle here is simple. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, especially when that basket is your survival. In the end, when the second collapse hits and your gear starts to fail, it's not the end of the world, though it might feel like it. It's just another problem to solve, another challenge to overcome, and with the right preparation, you can turn this potential disaster into just another day in your survival journey. Maintaining your tools, stocking parts, and planning backups for the backups is the way to go. After all, in the world of survival, the one thing you can rely on is change. And the best way to survive change is to anticipate it, prepare for it, and embrace it. The second collapse doesn't just affect supplies, it affects people too. Imagine this, you've weathered the storm of the initial disaster. You've managed to keep your group safe and fed, your water clean, your gear in working order, but then, one by one, you start to see it. The signs that the people around you are beginning to break down. Morale collapses. Laughter becomes a distant memory, replaced by a grim determination that grows more strained each day. The shared jokes and stories that used to lift spirits now fall on deaf ears. The light in people's eyes starts to dim. A survival group is only as strong as its weakest link, and when morale collapses, every link is weakened. Group conflict rises. Tensions that were once easily brushed aside now simmer just below the surface, ready to explode at the slightest provocation. Disagreements over rationing decisions or just the strain of the situation can lead to fractures within your group, creating division where unity is desperately needed. Mental exhaustion hits. The constant stress, the never-ending vigilance, the daily grind of survival, it all takes a toll. People start to make mistakes, become forgetful, or grow irritable. The mind, like the body, needs rest, and without it, mental exhaustion can set in. Trust erodes. When people are stressed and scared, they can start to question everything, even each other. Trust once lost is hard to regain, and without it, your survival group can fall apart from the inside. But there's hope. By identifying these early warning signs, you can take steps to manage these issues before they become insurmountable. Rotate leadership roles to distribute responsibility and alleviate some of the pressure. Assign different duties to keep tasks from becoming monotonous. Encourage open communication to prevent resentment from building up. Remember, survival isn't just about having the right gear or enough food. It's about maintaining the will to survive, the strength to keep going when everything around you is breaking down. Identifying early warning signs, managing conflict, and rotating leadership can help maintain mental resilience. Sometimes the plan that was supposed to save you can become your biggest problem. It's a hard truth to face, but in a survival scenario, the situation is always shifting. What worked on day 3 might be your downfall by month 6. Why does this happen? Well, it's primarily because most survival plans are based on assumptions. Assumptions about weather patterns, about how long your supplies will last, about the behavior of other people. When these assumptions don't hold up, your plan can quickly become a liability. For instance, staying in one location for too long can make you an easy target for both human and animal predators. You become predictable, and predictability can be lethal. Another common pitfall is over-reliance on fuel. It's easy to underestimate how much you'll need, and when it runs out, it can leave you in the cold, both literally and metaphorically. The key is to remain flexible. You need to be constantly reassessing your situation and adjusting your strategy accordingly. If your plan isn't working, don't be afraid to abandon it. Remember, your goal isn't to stick to the plan, it's to survive. This might mean making tough decisions like leaving a fortified position or rationing supplies even more tightly. But in the end, it's these decisions that could make the difference between life and death. Remember, flexibility is more important than perfection in survival scenarios. Surviving the second collapse requires foresight, planning, and adaptability. We've walked through the common pitfalls from dwindling food supplies and water crises to gear failure and social breakdowns. The solution lies in being proactive, adaptable, and resilient. Your survival plan is a living document, evolving with the situation. Don't let complacency be your downfall. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more survival content that prepares you for not just the crisis, but everything that comes after.